as a caretaker. When we're caretaking for someone, we're not taking care of ourselves.
In today's episode, I talked to a celebrity chef who works with Tom Brady, Sofia Vergara, Jerry Bruckheimer, and worked with Hugh Hefner in none other than the Playboy Mansion. And you would think our whole conversation is about eating healthy and making the most amazing meals. But the truth is, what this show gets into is how we show up in our relationships, especially as overgivers. When you overgive to your parents, to your kids, to your team, to your spouse, maybe to your friends, and how often that overgiving not only feels bad, but it really makes you sick. My guest completely transformed her life and is now nutritionist and wealth advisor to superstars. Hi, my name is Andrea Miller. Welcome to Getting Open. Let's get into it. Serena Poon, CN, CHC, CHN, is a certified nutritionist and celebrity chef, Reiki master, and the wellness and longevity advisor to A-list clients. Serena is also the founder of Just Add Water and co-founder of Fully Aligned Co. LLC, along with famed Harvard geneticist and professor, Dr. David Sinclair. Welcome, Serena. I'm so excited to have you on Getting Open.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Let's start with your personal story because it is both extreme and relatable. And my sense is it is through the grave health challenges your parents faced and that you faced yourself, put you on such a powerful personal and professional wellness journey. Will you tell us what happened?
Yes, sure. And thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. So my journey began actually, and as you said, with my parents. I was still in college and I was studying at Berkeley. I thought I was going to be the first, attorney in the family, a first generation Chinese born in the US. And clearly I was supposed to be an attorney or like a doctor or a CPA. And I was, pre-law, studying political science at Berkeley. And during my senior year, my daddy was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer. And he was very young at the time, just in his 40s. And it was one of those things where he had a condition. His grandpa actually passed the same thing. He had Hep B, and he had, his grandpa also had liver cancer. So he was aware of it, and he kept track. He did his 6-month checkups, and then somehow between two of them, he went from being told, you're, I guess, fine because there's no concerns. And then 6 months later, he was told he had 4. So, that was shocking and devastating. And then, of course, very true to my culture, my parents didn't actually tell us for a while. So I saw my dad, I guess like my dad had gotten into a car accident and I mean, they kind of blurred why, but really he had passed out in like a parking lot and hit one of those columns because I came home. I was in college and I came home. Can't remember which break it was, but I came home and there was a different car and so it had probably been going on for a few months before my parents finally told me. And then that just sort of changed life, because here's someone, and my daddy is my knight in shining armor. He always will be. And so when I saw my dad, he was already starting to deteriorate. He had already lost some weight. And that, it just changes your whole perspective, especially when someone is, they're he's pillar of the family. He's the one that brings everyone together. He's sort of like everyone's dad at work. And so he deteriorated pretty rapidly. And I think really at the time he was probably like 8 months, and somehow my daddy stretched it to a little over a year that he stayed with us to make sure everything was okay. But he really suffered, and during that time, everyone, we're all so helpless, and he's doing chemo and, radiation, and our relatives are bringing, like weird Chinese herbs and smuggling those Chinese tea. So he was doing that too, but it really wasn't helping him. So I started looking at plants and herbs and just different things, anything that could help, alleviate his discomforts. And at the same time, I realized there was no focus, but it wasn't even focus. There was really no conversation around food at all. So if he needed to eat something that had nutrients in it, it was just get down a hard-boiled egg, which unless you really love hard-boiled eggs, it's kind of hard to get down a dry yolk hard-boiled egg. So that experience really just sort of shifted things for me. And I'm a caretaker and a healer at heart. And it's painful to watch someone that you love so much go through that and not be able to do anything for them. So my mentality at that time was already, how the whole family, everyone suffers alongside, and we are grieving, but we're also in pain. You're going through the whole process. It affects the person who's sick, but it affects everyone. And at the same time, my father was carrying so much guilt because we were suffering, which a person who is unwell and fighting for their life should never have to carry that weight. And people do, right? And so, he passed after a little over a year. He transitioned. He was only 48. And then my mom was diagnosed with a rare form of ovarian cancer within 2 months of that. So then we hadn't grieved, and then we started on that journey. And I think my daddy was looking out for her, like her angel. And it was like a 1 in 1 million. And so she had to have instant hysterectomy, couldn't go on hormones. She was 45. And then she had to go through her own, treatment and therapies with chemo and radiation. And that was the beginning, and still remains to be the driving passion behind what I do. It was after her experience that I made the decision to go to culinary school to study food as medicine rather than to go to law school, which was jolting for my family. Kind of went like white sheep to black sheep, but that's okay. It all worked out. Both of them. And it was such a gift in some ways, actually, to really see the experience of food not being utilized as medicine, to being in an environment where the focus is on food, not just the enjoyment of it, where it becomes medicine for your heart and your soul and your mind and your emotions, but also, studying nutrition and really understanding how food is medicine for our body. And that's the beginning of my journey. But of course, as a caretaker and as a woman, all the women out there know, and not to say that daddies don't also know, but when we're caretaking for someone, we're not taking care of ourselves. So I ended up creating a lot of inflammation in my own body. And we have this very misguided sense that if I suffer for someone that I love, then they'll get better, or somehow they'll benefit from it. And it's okay to sacrifice that. So as long as they're well. So I eventually had so much inflammation. I kept getting sick, and I had to have a surgery to remove damaged tissue that was in my chest from all that inflammation. And from that surgery, I got MRSA, MRSA, which is a deadly staph infection. And then that became my own personal journey for the next 8 years and 8 surgeries, one of which I almost died from. And along that way, and I don't want to go you can ask me questions. I don't want to take up all of the time talking about this, but that was where I really learned so many different modalities and ways of healing, and what brought me to where I am today from, what we call biohacking now, I was doing 10, 15 years ago. All the therapies and light and oxygen and everything you could think of, all the different modalities, I was doing that with my own body, which then, I transferred to my clients and into my practice, and never, ever just continue to add different experiences and modalities, and realizing that there is always more. There's always another way. Really just about figuring out what the recipe is per person, what is it that their body needs, and our body tells us. Just like when you're looking at in one small little place, you're not going to see the whole big picture. And so in that process, I developed what I call culinary alchemy, which is a method of kind of applying food and supplements, and the way we connect with the food as nourishment, as medicine for the body. And that just became one of a larger picture of my ethos, my method, which I call holistic lifestyle medicine, holistic with a W, where there's 6. And, this is how we teach, this is how I approach my practice and just my entire philosophy and my ethos when I'm teaching people, even online.
Well, congratulations on taking so much heartache and grief and loss and alchemizing that into such a beautiful life. And in part, there's a lot to cover, but just as so many of us, everybody faces setbacks and hardship and unexpected loss. I mean, your dad was so young. That's so tragic. And what you've done with it is beautiful. But I want to give a quote just to really drive this point home, because I think it's really important, because what you've described, I don't think it's too extreme a statement to say you made yourself sick. You didn't do it intentionally, but how extreme caregiving, and even, there's so much data for women who feel like they always need to be nice. Right? And I'm not saying being nice is bad, but like when you do these things to an extreme and you don't care for yourself, it becomes no bueno. So here's what you say. All that mattered was the health and happiness of my loved ones. I took it upon myself to be the ultimate caretaker, making it my passion, my mantra, and my goal to make sure that the people I loved were happy and healthy. But in doing so, I overlooked my own health, heartache, and trauma from what our family had gone through. My good intentions and drive for healing others led me to a place where I was sacrificing my wellness for the sake of helping others. And just about every woman listening to this, and a few of the men, are going, oh my God, thank you, because that describes so many of our lives.
Yeah, it does. It does. And, there's a beauty in that we love so much and we love so deeply and we want to be of service to others. And that's beautiful. But at the same time, there needs to be, and I don't want to use the word balance, but, we have to factor ourselves into that service and that beauty and that love for others. We need to love ourselves equally, because we overlook ourselves and we literally take ourselves out of that collective group. When we're talking about, that the people I love, we don't count ourselves. And so we forget.
Totally. Yeah. And when I think about how hustle culture is glorified, and that's total BS, I would even say martyr culture, and it's well-intentioned, right? But it is so misguided. And then you see what it gets propagated through a lot of, if you will, mainstream media, and maybe a little bit less social media, because as fake as so much social media is, I also feel like a lot of people are trying to keep it real. But I just feel like in a lot of cultures, it sounds like Chinese culture, American culture, my husband's Indian, Indian culture as well, like really putting everybody else first. But I love what you say on your site. You say, I learned to balance my energy and to take care of myself first so that I can take care of everyone else around me. And I just want to say, hugs and high fives, sister. Because when we can, and when it doesn't feel like it's Sophie's choice, when it really feels like a wise choice, to me, that amplifies what we have to give particularly as, in all the roles we play, whether, I was going to say working moms, but it doesn't matter. Whatever role, whatever caretaking role we're in, to have that wisdom. And I'm saying this like with a lot of passion, because a lot of people haven't gotten that memo. I think I only recently got that memo.
Yeah, and I thank you so much for your kind words. I also have to acknowledge that it took me a long time to learn that. I had to get sick. I had to almost die,
Yes.
And
that's a lot of people.
Happened multiple times. And even now, it's so natural to the inclination to give to someone else, to serve someone else, to take a small sacrifice on yourself and your time and your needs so that someone else can feel amazing. I mean, that feels good for us too, right? It's so natural. So I literally have to schedule in. I treat myself, my self-care and the things I do for myself like a meeting, that I would have I schedule it in, I do it ahead of time, and I make it, not quite a non-negotiable, but pretty close. Like, this is something that's important to do. And I think, we always talk about, the whole oxygen, you put the oxygen mask on yourself first. I mean, that's great. It's also overused and it doesn't connect to people. I think what helps.
That's also survival. Like, we're not talking survival. Like, I want to thrive, and I am thriving so the people around me can thrive. So my cup is full. Now it's overflowing, and I want to pour all the good stuff into everybody else's cup.
And I think about it. Think about the difference you feel. Think about the difference it is in an action when you're feeling good, when you're feeling, you're feeling rested, you're feeling well, you're feeling abundant. When you're feeling great and you go do something for someone else, it could be as simple as, making someone a meal. That process is a different experience than when you're making that exact same meal. It could be the same recipe, but you were wiped out, you were exhausted. It's a different experience. And so I think that's a good reminder for ourselves, rather than something that it's like, oh, the oxygen first and the safety vest and all of that. I mean, that we tell ourselves, but we still don't practice it. But if you think about how good it feels, how you feel when you're doing something for someone else and you're in a great state, you're in a great state, what you're offering and what you're doing, what you're delivering is also very different.
Well, totally. And I talk about my parents, from time to time on my show. My dad, shout out to Mike Miller, just extraordinary guy. He is the sole caretaker of my mom, who has dementia and severe COPD. And they live in Georgia. I live in Colorado. And when I go home and I go back to their place, pretty often Serena, it is such a big difference. Like, I'm making the meals and I'm doing the stuff and whatever, and half the time I'm working or whatever. But it's like I show up with so much joy. Like, I show up with gratitude. I show up presence, and it's like everything shifts. And I can do that now because I've done so much of my own work, but I also really prioritize my rest, my well-being, and it's like game changed. And it's like, even if I wasn't making food or any of that stuff for them, it wouldn't even matter. Like, they're not, what they want from me is for me to be tuned in.
Yeah. Just your presence and you bringing that lightness, you bringing that frequency, a lot about frequency, as you bringing that frequency elevates the whole environment, elevates them.
And well, I love to say, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think that's something that we forget, because it's not a tangible, is that the more nourished you are, the better you take care of yourself, the higher your frequency is. And just being in a room, just being present with others helps elevate them when you are in that place.
Well, totally. And you talk a little bit about manifestation in your work. And one of my favorite, big ahas is from Neville Goddard. And it is simply this: everything and everybody is you pushed out. And that is, to me, there's no refuting that. And when you take that to heart, and when you take it to the extreme logical conclusion, you're never a victim. And you've got complete agency. You've got unlimited power. And to your point, it all comes from your energy, your frequency. And the more that I've taken that to heart personally, I mean, listen, I still have problems, and I still, every now and then I'm like, oh shoot, what I'm seeing pushed out is not so pretty right now. What do I need to change? But it's all signals coming in. And if we can meet these things as signals, and these problems and people and so forth as signals to say, how do I need to show up more for myself? How do I need to, I'm also way into the energy stuff. And it's like, how can I go from a chaotic energy field to a more coherent energy field? And it's like, as I practice that, it's like, oh my gosh, just like a laser beam of light, it's not scattered and diffuse. It is strong and coherent. And it really changes everything.
It does. It changes everything in that moment, and it changes everything in all the moments that follow, and it can just be seconds. I think that I think that especially in this day and age, and we've got AI and things move so quickly and our attention spans are zero, we forget how much sovereignty, we actually have. We forget how much choice we have. And we do relinquish a lot of choice to our externals. I mean, that's essentially our medical system, which I can see, especially over the past 2.5 decades that I've been a practitioner. People just sort of naturally and without thinking give up their sovereignty. They give up their choice to someone else to make a decision for them. There's no way anyone's going to know as much about you than you if you choose to know yourself. If you choose to know everything about you, there's no one else that can help you make a better decision. They can help guide you, especially if you share that information, depending on what the specifics, what the expertise is. But we forget that we have sovereignty. We always have, we always will, and that we have choice. So when you remember that, everything that comes in front of you, whether you like it or not, can be shifted, can be changed. And it's just, it completely puts a different perspective on everything when you look at it that way.
Yeah, thank you. As I'm for anybody who's listening, you can't see how excited I am. And I'm like, my arms are waving because I hear the word sovereignty. And again, particularly for women, I mean, for men too, but so often we forget. And you talk a lot about, even in terms of health, how we're here to help our bodies remember. And I've done a lot of embodiment work, and I want to really get into that with you too. But I love that word remember, because so often, I mean, when I think of sovereignty, like to me, it is a sacred remembering versus saying, I have to learn it, I have to figure it out, it's hard. And instead, I feel like just really tapping into your sacred divine energy, both for men and women, it's like our bodies know. But we get, to your point, we get misled in thinking all of the information is outside of us. And then we outsource it to doctors or to other so-called experts. And by the way, you're an expert. I mean, there are a lot of great experts that will teach the rest of us. But I feel like all of us really just need to be trusting filters, and asking good questions when it comes to our health and well-being.
Yes. I mean, I think, and I like to, I guide the people that I work with. I mean, they would say teach, and there is teach, but most of the times I'm really giving you reminders. It's about remembering yourself. It's about remembering what your body is capable of. It's about remembering what your mind is capable of. It's remembering about how we are built. It is remembering our biology and what we are able to do. So, it is when I talk about sovereignty, and it's really about reminding people of that and who they really are, so that they can take ownership back. And I think especially now that's happening more and more, because we have the ability to measure ourselves. We have the ability to learn more about ourselves. But once we take that kind of data that is data that we can get externally about our internal, it's about thinking about, well, how did that happen? You think about your own experiences, you think about your own thoughts. And as you were just saying, that I completely agree with, your body always knows, and your body's always speaking to you, just in different ways. And you don't hear it unless you pay attention, or unless you just kind of get quiet and get still, and then you hear everything. But we get busy, we're kind of in the hustle.
Yeah, and just adding to that, and then I want to make sure we're talking about your expertise in nutrition and so forth. But I read somewhere recently, and it really resonated with me, that our intuition improves as our nervous system heals, right? And to me, that's back to the energy thing. It's like if we're in chaos and we're stressed out and in that sympathetic, fight or flight, chronic. And so many of us either are or have been either chronically stressed or frequently stressed and anxious, versus getting that rest, back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, prioritizing our own well-being. To me, you become you become more intuitive, and you can listen to your gut, and you can trust yourself more. I mean, it all goes hand in hand, if you ask me.
Yes, no, it absolutely does. I mean, and sometimes it can happen in an instant
Yeah,
because
that's true. Actually, that is true. Get
when
that
you
aha.
when you do that heart brain coherence, when you just take a moment, when you do some breathing, whatever it is that shifts your body into that parasympathetic mode, you are literally able to hear what it is that your intuition, is trying to tell you.
Totally. Well, I got to I wasn't planning on talking about this, but because you mentioned it, and you talk a lot about mindset work, and I love the mindset work, but I've been developing something called heart set. And when I think about heart set, right, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's getting into that heart brain coherence. It really is your energetic signature. And so often, I mean, when I think about our culture and what were we just talking about, how we all feel like even in the spirit of being caretakers and giving to others, it's a lot of that doing, it's planning, it's driving in that masculine energy. When I think about heart set and getting into that parasympathetic state, whether through breath, through visualization, I mean, there are so many different ways to get into it. But I feel like for me, as somebody who's been a super type A overachiever, I drove my mindset to the edge. And while I didn't get a terminal illness, the quality of my life was not great. A lot of things were strained in my life. And as I've adopted this heart set and really prioritizing that, regulating my nervous system, feeling into my body, activating my kind of like best vibes, it's made a big difference.
Sure. Yeah, no, and that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it really is. And it's funny because it, if you're just listening and you're someone that doesn't really have, you can just kind of shift quickly, it might seem like foreign to you, but, brain works in our brain wires, and then it works in that pattern, and that becomes our comfort and our norm. So to actually shift into what you're describing, to shift and have a different routine, to have a different way of living, different way of thinking, that actually takes a lot of work, because you have to retrain your brain. You have to tell your brain, yeah, this really like high strung, like high beta way of living, that's actually not what I want to be doing. That's actually not a comfort zone. And so it's so natural for us. That's just neuroscience. It's just so natural for us. Once we take our brains and we want to implement a new habit, it's going to resist. It's going to fight us for a while because those wires are well-worn wires. So it's, so I'm saying, thank you for sharing that. And that's amazing that you did it, because it really takes a lot of effort and focus to implement a new way of living, a new way of thinking, a new way of just being. Even though we may come into this world, born that way, remembering and then having and sort of like unwinding and making new wires it takes a lot of discipline. I mean, and our nervous system loves rituals. Our nervous system loves routines. That is what is safe. And that helps with, again, everything else that you said. It helps with our immune. It helps with, our gut. It helps with our hormones. It helps with everything. It helps with our mood, clearly, when we can regulate our nervous system that way.
Yeah, no, it's changed the game for me. Okay, so you have a really amazing, rare combination of credentials. But before I really want to dive into that, because when I think about somebody who goes to the Cordon Bleu for nutritional healing, I'm like, what? They even allow that? But let's pause there for one sec. I want to read this great quote from none other than Jerry Bruckheimer, the famed Hollywood producer, Pirates of the Caribbean, Top Gun. You guys all are familiar with him. He says, this is so sweet: Serena Poon is the real deal. Her knowledge, expertise, and wellness products have made a huge difference in my overall health and well-being. As a chef, nutritionist, Reiki master, and holistic expert, her advice and consultation help keep me healthy and feeling great. I mean, that's high praise from that guy, right? And there are so many other people that have given similarly high praise to you. And so as a really practical matter, I mean, I know a lot of what we're talking about can feel like how practical is it? To me, it's like the most practical thing. But I want to come back, so just to these credentials. that you're a graduate of one of the world's most prestigious culinary academies, Le Cordon Bleu, where you completed its most intense and comprehensive programming, Grand Diplome. You have a BS from UC Berkeley, no small feat. And then you're also certified as a Reiki master. And it's such a rare combination of credentials. But let's talk for a minute. When you applied to Le Cordon Bleu, did they know that you went there? I mean, because you think of that as like French food to be savored and to get Michelin stars and right, conspicuous consumption. But you went there with a whole different idea, which is pretty freaking radical. I kind of love it. So how did that work? Were they like, no, you just need to like make your roux and follow what everybody else is doing?
It's so funny. You're actually the first person that's ever really pointed that out. So I really appreciate that. It's just a reminder, again, you have sovereignty, you decide. When I went to Le Cordon Bleu, I absolutely went there knowing that I was not going to come out cooking the type of food they were teaching me. I was there to learn technique. I was there to learn technique and to really kind of like lock in the skills I would need to take in a completely different set of ingredients and create something that was just as delicious and memorable as using all of the fats and the sugars, and the salts and everything that is maybe delicious, but not terribly healthy. So I knew, and that's because of my experience, with my parents. I knew that I wanted to go in there and learn a different way, because what I saw in my experience with my parents was that food, which my daddy loved food, that was how we bonded. I studied nutrition at Berkeley because I love to eat, and to see him have to just choke down food that wasn't beautiful, that wasn't delicious, but it seemed safe and it was what he needed nutrient wise to stay alive and to get to the next day and the next day. That's really why so it wasn't just, okay, let me study nutrition and find out what foods are good as medicine. It was also that food, when it's healthy and when it's used as medicine, can still be delicious and it can still be beautiful. And that's why I went to culinary school. It wasn't like what the doctors say, when you're not feeling it, they say eat the brat diet or brat, whatever that is. You know what I'm talking about, right? Bread, banana, whatever. When you've got food poisoning or you have a tummy. It was more, why does healthy food have to be bland? Why does healthy food have to be boring? Why can't healthy food that's used as medicine, why can't it be just as beautiful and stunning to our palate and to our eyes as, a Michelin star French cuisine? Why can't it be like that? So that was what I went into culinary school thinking. And that was how I did my program. It's very similar to like when I worked for Hugh Hefner at the Playboy Mansion after I graduated from culinary school. And people think I went for all these reasons, but really when I went there, I thought, this is great. There's no food budget. I mean, there's no food cost. When you're at a restaurant, you've got to keep the food budget, the cost below a certain percentage. Otherwise, that restaurant it'll fail, because the margins are not very good. But here I am working for someone in a home, and I can learn everything from
someone, Hugh Hefner, not anyone. Yes. Oh my God, so many stories, I'm sure.
Yes, I mean there's so many stories, but the great thing about it and why I wanted to work there was because I had the whole range of experiences in the kitchen, because it would be cooking for one person all the way to cooking for 1,500 people for 8 hours, or 2,000 people, or 40 people, so I had the whole, which was really different than working in a restaurant environment and also not having to worry about food costs. I mean, for half, doesn't matter how much it costs, you get it. Doesn't matter if you burn it 500 times, make sure you got to do it until you get it right. So it was a different experience. And I went in there thinking, I'm going to, taking my knowledge from Le Cordon Bleu. And it was, I know how to make something that would normally cost $500. I can take $15 worth of ingredients and make it taste like $500 worth of ingredients, and give people those experiences. So I've always kind of gone into my, the things I learn, and my training that way is, how am I going to use this in a way that's not as straightforward?
Well, yeah, practical and innovative. Let me ask this. I mean, we think of Hugh Hefner. I mean, he was, this like large than life, almost like a caricature, but he was a pioneer. I mean, he was like the first, like when you think like brands, I mean, and multi-brand strategy, he was way ahead of his time. Okay. I mean, and yes, we like to, like scantily clad women and all that stuff, but he really was a pioneer. What did you learn? I mean, and I realize this is a little different from your main, well, you're an entrepreneur. So what are the one or two main things you learned from him? I'd be remiss if I didn't ask.
Well, here's one thing I can say about Hef. He was brand aligned. Always. Okay.
In his robe.
If he was actually living the brand on the outside, from a public perspective, he's always brand aligned, if that makes sense, without me revealing to you. So even if he's not living the brand behind the scenes, when you see him, you show up, he is his brand. He always shows up as that brand. Everything is built around supporting whatever that brand is known for, that brand identity. It was always brand aligned. And clearly that's worked, because that exists now still. I mean, it's people will know what he built, what he did, who he was. And he's crushed. He's transitioned for a long time now, but he built a brand and a name that will exist for, I don't even know how long. I can't say that the young generations right now know it, but most probably do.
Yeah,
so
no, it's just, I mean, I didn't realize that was part of your resume. So that's interesting. Well, I would love to, okay, so you've got the culinary piece, and talk to me about Reiki. First of all, what is Reiki? Because the energy piece seems equally important to the nutrition and food piece.
Yes, definitely. So Reiki is a form of energy healing, and there's all kinds of different techniques, right? Techniques and styles. There's Reiki, there's pranic, there's quantum, there's so many different ways. And Reiki is it's just a style of moving energy, and it's not your energy. It's almost like energy moving through you. And in that way, we can clear energy. We can all feel energy. We think that we don't, if it's not something that we practice. But just, sometimes you can be in a room with someone and they give you weird vibes. Someone can give you the hibby-jibbies. Someone can make you feel really good. That's energy. We just put a word on it. We can put vibes. We can put hibby-jibbies. I mean, but it's really energy. It's their frequency. And so when we're talking about with Reiki, it's about it. A lot of it is clearing and moving. We have energy centers, and quite often when we're working with Reiki, it's about those different energy centers that we call chakras. And in different cultures, we know energy as chi or as prana. And with Reiki, you're essentially moving. You're moving and clearing those different areas of a person's physical body that align with a person's physical body. And you're kind of like clearing it so that there's better flow. And everyone has a different style. I kind of combine the way I do it, and you can do it distally too. So you can tune in to someone distally, and because everything is energy, we are all connected. You can tune into someone and form a connection. This is going to maybe sound weird to some people who aren't familiar with it, but form a connection and still be able to help them move energy through their body, sort of like unblock areas of their body that have more density, that have sort of stuck energy, or there isn't flow. So when I say flow, like think about your lymphatic system, right? Like people know what the lymphatic system is. That is in your own body. And that is sort of the detoxing system in your body, your lymphatics. Your energy, when we talk about flow, that's not fluid. That's energy. And that can same like your lymphatics, it can get clogged, it can get stuck, and you need it to flow so that things get cleared out. Like, energy that doesn't serve you, blockages is safe. It's very similar in terms of how it affects your physical body and how it can affect your mood, your mind, body, all of that. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, well, I want to come back and get drilling a little bit, but I'm for people who are watching, you can see me rubbing my hands together. For if you're like, oh, this is a little arcane, and if you're not watching, if you're listening, I'm rubbing my hands together. You may be able to hear it, and everybody do it with me, unless you're driving. It's like you do that, and then you put your hands a little bit apart. You feel that field. Right. And so I do that just because for people to go, nah, or I don't know, like, hey, doubters, learn something new today, open your heart and mind. So that's real. And I just do that little teeny tiny thing to go, okay, let's really ground this. This isn't woo. It's not woo. So Serena, how would if I said, my son is having a hard time, or my mom is having a hard time, and I'm not a Reiki master, and I haven't trained in this stuff, and probably most of our listeners haven't. Is there something that you can teach us, whether it's distally or somebody sitting next to me, that practically that would enable us to use Reiki principles, or is that too great a lift to ask you on a podcast?
Well, I mean, I would say, we don't have to call it Reiki, so as long as you have someone's permission, right? As long as you have someone's, we can call it, but, there's like principles, and you should train and, kind of stand by those principles. But let's say, so, what we do when we say we're going to send someone love? What do you do when your best friend is having a hard day, or your child, or your parents, and someone calls you and they tell you they're having a bad day, and you're thinking about sending them love? Like, what is it that you're doing? You are present, focused on them. Like, literally, you can visualize them, or you feel them, right? And you fill your heart, you fill yourself with love, and you focus that love on them in your effort to how to send them love. You don't say, oh, I'm going to send you love, like you're just sending a text message, you're actually feeling it, and you're like transmitting that frequency of love. So you don't need to be a Reiki master or a practitioner to do that for someone they may be in your presence, or they may be far away. But just focusing on what it is, maybe they're going through a challenge, and focusing on the feeling and the thought of that challenge leaving them, whether it's a physical discomfort or it could be a work thing, it doesn't matter what it is, but focusing on that and focusing on that challenge leaving them, and then focusing on the feeling of love and sending it to them so that they feel it too. That is like an energy transmission. That is not exactly Reiki, but that is part of that practice,
Right. It reminds me, listening to you, it reminds me of prayer.
Yes.
Right. That it's like, for people who
sending a blessing. And then, we have these 5 principles in Reiki that sometimes when you just share them with someone, sometimes people do tapping. When you get present and focused on something in that moment, it can really help shift someone's state and give them the healing that they need. And so in Reiki, we say, just for today, I will not be angry. Just for today, I do not worry. Just for today, I will be grateful. Just for today, I will work hard. Just for today, I will be kind. I mean, it's just saying that in this moment, this is one thing that we can do. Because most of the times when someone's having in an experience where they need support, it's because they're so overwhelmed. It feels everything is in that moment for them. And when you can just tell, like, have them say that with you, it's a just for today, I'm not going to worry just for today, just for this moment. And then it creates space. It creates space to disconnect from what that overwhelm is and for them to regain perspective. Because when we're in those moments, it feels like your whole life, like, is that your whole life like depends on this email or in this meeting or in this decision or whatever it is, and you don't have perspective. But when you say, just for today, I'm not going to think that this is the end of the world. Just for today, I'm not going to, and then it can reset your nervous system and ground you.
I love that so much. It seems powerfully compounding, right? Because if it's just today, and then today is tomorrow, and then the next day, it reminds me of Atomic Habits, where it's like every single day, next thing you know, it's like you're making a 0.1% increase or a 1% increase. And over time, and to your point, that healing your nervous system often is in those day after day, hour after hour, minute after minute increments. So I love that.
Yeah. For today. And that's why meditation, people think we have to do it for 2 hours. Honestly, you can just take 4 breaths, count to 4 in between, a little bit of box breathing. I call it the 4-4-4. And in 1 minute, you've sort of meditated, because it's just about getting really present and getting still, and you shift. So, and then the more you do that, eventually you add more minutes. And then all of a sudden you're in practice of like 10 minutes. So every little thing counts.
Yeah, no, and I love that, because I think for a lot of people, and I want to turn towards some really specific takeaways from you, because the truth is, oh my God, when you go to Costco, holy smokes, like looking in the beauty department, I'm like, they're like 782 just Korean skincare treatments, right? And that's just the Korean ones, right? And this is, you talk about longevity and reversing aging and so forth, but then you talk about like getting into supplements and all the biohacking you can do. Like, there's not enough time in a day. Like, you could never not even sleep. I don't know what I'm saying. And so I feel like it can be overwhelming, right? So what I love about what you're saying is, like, if you just kind of pull back and just a little bit at a time and not get overwhelmed by the literally infinite things you can do, you can have that sovereignty, right? We're coming full circle.
Oh yeah, 100%. It is very overwhelming right now. There's so much, and everything by design is supposed to get you to pay attention to it, right? So everything by design is supposed to stimulate your senses, which is why we have sensory overload. It's not like you walk into Costco and it's just like perfect minimalistic. There might be 17,000 products.
Everything beige and candles.
Yeah. By design, that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be
to shop.
Pay attention to it, right? Yeah. And I think that part of it, again, as you said, is just knowing what is it that I'm not saying you don't need 14 supplements. I don't really know what a person needs, but it's really like one thing at a time, one thing at a time. You don't need to address your sleep and your fitness and your skin and your hair and your big toe all in one sitting. It's just doing one thing at a time. And even in my private practice, that's what we do. We address one thing at a time. And then you get to 7 things a lot faster when you do one thing at a time than when you try to do all 7 things at once.
Amen, sister. And I wish you would have told me that a long time ago, because I'm always like that. Oh, I can do 7 things at once. Like, watch me stress, sweating. but it's a good reminder, because, and so often, again, in the spirit of, like, for me as a mom, it's like, I'm not even just trying to do 7 things for myself. I'm trying to do 7 things for my kids. I'm trying to do 7 things for my team. And it's like, so when you take that sovereignty and that wisdom back and say, okay, let's slow down. I'm going to give a shout out to one of my teammates, my soul sister, Serena. She's always like, just one thing, Andrea. I'm like, really? Just one? Come on, give me 7. Like, no, we need 1. Okay, so I want to talk about, you say true radiance starts on your plate. So we were talking about beauty. What exactly should you be incorporating into your diet to improve texture, strengthen the skin barrier, and prevent wrinkles and acne?
So people ask me this all the time, and there's a few things. It's my mantra. Hydration is number 1. And you can get hydration by way of drinking good water, high quality water. Even if it's not the highest, just drink clean water that has some life into it. And if you don't have water that's got natural electrolytes and minerals, you can always just add some of your own. You just even adding a little bit of Celtic sea salt, that is already giving your water life. And that's very important to remember. And eating bright colored living things. I talk about eating the rainbow all the time, and it's just very easy to remember. You don't have to have, every plate. I just realized I say, a lot. I got to work on that. Anyway,
one thing.
Yeah, one thing. So you don't have to have a rainbow on every single plate and every single meal. It's great if you can, but if you can at least get it throughout the course of your day and check off all the different colors, you're getting a spectrum of the different phytonutrients, those plant phenols that are so beneficial for us. So many of the supplements that we take are actually synthetic forms of what we naturally get from fruits and vegetables. So get it naturally as much as that you can. Plus, you're getting your fiber. You're getting that insoluble and insoluble fiber, depending on what type of foods that you're eating. And it helps with your entire system. So when you're talking about building collagen, yes, you're get good vitamin C if you can through foods. So I'm a much bigger fan of something like amla or camu rather than an ascorbic acid supplement. That's like a form of vitamin C. That camu or that amla or that plant.
Yeah, what are those? I've heard of amla. I've never heard of kabu.
Camu. So it's
no wonder.
So camu, it's another type of fruit. So there's all kinds of different fruits, and you don't have to have that stuff fresh. You can have that in a raw, dehydrated powder form. You can have it dried. It's just about, and that's maybe not fresh necessarily, but it's still getting it in a format that is bioavailable for your body. And it also helps protect, when you're getting certain vitamins, it helps with your sun protection. So at the end of the day, anytime you can reach for whole plant-based foods and you can cover the spectrum of the rainbow and you get them fresh and living as much as possible, and of course, I'm going to say organic because we don't want those pesticides all over our foods. That is going to change how you feel. And there's no question about that. If you did that just for 3 or 4 days and you didn't have processed foods, it makes such a huge difference. And that hydration is so key. I would say hydration is one of the biggest challenges for everybody, myself included. If you're traveling or you're flying, if you have a super long day, you're forgetting to drink throughout the day. And that's how your body hydrates, not slamming a liter at the tail end and the beginning of your day. It is really about throughout the day so that you can actually absorb it. And of course, proper water. So and with my clients, I see this all the time. It is the one thing. They will take all the things. They will work out 2 or 3 hours. They will sauna. They will cold plunge. They will do all the things, but maybe not drink enough water. And the minute they start drinking enough water, they literally they gain. So they lose the wrinkles and the dryness. They gain 2, 4, 5 years back in their face just from being well hydrated. And then of course, like I said about the foods and getting good healthy fats in. So that is something very, very simple that we can all do. We just overthink it. We think about checking off a specific list of fruits and vegetables that we have to get in. There are certain foods and vegetables that can help a little bit more than others. But if you just did that, if you just focused on fresh, whole foods, color of the rainbow, it will make a huge difference.
Yeah, no, I love that. And there's been a lot of documentation on how so much processed food is literally killing us and aging us and creating mental health crises. So yeah, so like just as someone who loves all my audience, I just want to say, like, you are what you eat. But I love what you were saying, Serena, about hydration. And my husband actually, he ran a organization. He's, like I said, he's from India, called Water Health International. They were bringing drinking water to people that don't have it in the developing world. And something that was striking to me when he joined there was that 70% of illnesses, at least at that time in the developing world, were due to waterborne illnesses, right? And, and it's like there's parasites and all these things. So they went in to help improve the water. And so water has been something big in our family for a long time. So we have an RO filter, but we were just talking about how an RO is reverse osmosis, but it filters out the minerals. And so what you're saying, and everybody, like, I'm just like, shout out, because I haven't been hearing a lot about high quality water. Like, we're just used to like opening the tap, and I live in Colorado. So I'm like, oh, the tap water is fine. And now you're saying this, and what I'm learning, it's like, you really have to take, like, all water isn't created equal.
No, it's right? not. And actually drinking water that is depleted of minerals depletes. And we talk a lot about plastics. What we don't talk about the plastics, because it's not just about the microplastics. It's about the fact that when you're drinking like what distilled water, or just, there's a company called just Pure Water. I can't remember what it's called. I don't want to call it any company anyway. But if it's just like pure water and it's not, there's nothing in it, it leaches more than just the plastic from those bottles, because the molecules are always trying to find balance. And so that's another thing that we have to take into consideration. So you want water, I call it like, water that has life, and that's minerals, and it's not hard. And I know it sounds a little bit nerdy, but it might be a good idea to just carry a little baggie, in your purse or in your backpack or whatever. You can even stick in your briefcase with just a little bit of like Celtic sea salt, just a little bit of that, because that's got enough minerals in it. If you just sprinkle, and not so that the water tastes salty, you don't need that much, but just a little bit, so that water is also more bioavailable for the body.
Yeah, no, I love this so much, and it's just right on time, because I actually make what I call my hydrating love water. Every morning I put Himalayan sea salt, a squeeze of lime, a little bit of MCT oil, apple cider vinegar, so it tastes terrible, and then I do like a love incantation into my water, and I give and it's so it's
I love that. That's very culinary alchemy.
Beautiful. Hydrating love water. So I make one for myself. I give one to my husband, and it's just our thing. And it's like, it's been like this new ritual. And because, I want to talk for a minute too with you about fasting and autophagy. So I don't eat till like noon typically now. And so I drink my water. I mean, I do have coffee and tea in the morning. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell David. I want to be a purist.
I tell you, what you also don't realize that you're doing with that water is water holds frequency. Water holds frequency. So just you calling it love water and doing an incantation, you are actually putting a frequency in those molecules. We've seen that. So that's amazing. It's more than just apple cider vinegar. It's more than just the pH levels. It's more than just the minerals that you're putting in there. You're actually changing the frequency and sort of like the structure of those water molecules when you do that. That's amazing.
Thank you. Well, and honestly, the hydration and the fermentation, and then I'm giving it to my husband, but it's something you said a little while ago, or a long time ago, maybe in our conversation. To me, it's about ritual. So when I make this, and it's like, I get up, I do my meditation, and I kind of have my own me time. And then it's like, all right, I go down into the kitchen, and it's like, all right, making my hydrating love water. Here we go. Tastes terrible. And pound it.
That's something that, your listeners should follow suit and do as well. And it's low cost, right? That's the other thing.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy. Yeah, no. And it's like the thing you were saying, like just one thing at a time. And my husband was like, oh, you should put in some trace minerals. And I found some trace minerals. So it's like, but just a little drop of trace minerals. And it's like, oh, and again, back to the compounding. I mean, it's amazing if you try to do it all at once. And actually, it's a perfect segue, because, oh my goodness, we talked about so many different beauty products. There are so many different supplements. And so I want to ask this, with so many people selling supplements and programs these days, how can people figure out what is best for them And as a nutritionist, what would you tell your best friend or family member? How do I know when a longevity program or when, these kinds of supplements are legit? Like, what's the one thing or two things?
So supplements, I mean, first of all, supplements, any decent supplement any supplement that you put in your body should be manufactured in like a GMP facility. GMP, good manufacturing practices. And then sometimes there's, NSF2, which is really not as necessary. That's like a higher level. Usually that has to do with if a facility is also clean enough for food can be processed there. But at the very least, GMP. And when you're, and you can always, if sometimes supplement companies will put their certificate of analysis like online, some don't, but you can always ask for it. So those are like key rules. When it comes to molecules that are from, say, plant sources, like a berberine, like a resveratrol, certain molecules, you can easily look up how is that supposed to look like if it's high quality. That's everything. No, now that we have chat, it's even easier, right? You can look up how is that berberine supposed to look like. Is it supposed to look brown? No, it's supposed to be bright and yellow and quercetin. So that is probably diving in a little bit deeper when you're talking about supplements. But if someone really wants to get go more than just one step in, and you are listening to someone's podcast and they say to take XYZ, that's a very quick and easy search that will take you seconds on like an AI form that tells you how should this look like, and you can go and look it up on that website and see how their resveratrol looks like, how their berberine looks like, how their quercetin looks like. So I would say, do that if you can, and then always check for that, and check for certificates of analysis if it's even questionable for you. One huge call out that I would definitely put top of mind is anytime people make overarching claims. There is no magic pill yet, although we are working on it, and that'll come in a few. That's for a different episode, but there isn't one pill or one capsule or one tablet that does everything. So when a supplement company makes too many claims, that's another flag. And you can always go again and search, because there's a lot of companies that make claims for things that it's just not even scientifically possible. If you go and you look it up, So I would say that those are some key call outs. If your audience is even if they've dived into like the longevity space more than they have in the recent years, there are certain supplements that are fat soluble, and there are certain supplements that are water soluble. That's another super easy thing to look up. If a supplement is combining fat soluble and water soluble molecules in the same blend, because they want to say, it's got, I don't know, an NAD precursor, and it's got this and it's got that. When you look that up and it's all in one mix, it's not going to be as efficacious, because you can't make both soluble in one capsule. And that's something that's happening a lot that I see out there. It's just, so and so, this expert talks about these things, so I'm just going to put it all in one capsule and sell it, and so often it's not actually bioavailable. So the two things.
What is better, or is it just it can't be both fat soluble and water soluble? But is one preferable?
No,
fat versus water.
It's about solubility. So some molecules are just by design water soluble, and some are by design fat soluble. And so it's not that one or the other is better. It's just that you can't really have both in one and think that you're going to get the max. You're going to receive the max benefits. The solubility is different. So fat soluble molecules have to be dissolved in fat. Water soluble molecules have to be dissolved in water. So unless it's a specific form of a fat soluble that is they've made into water soluble, which is very rare, it can't do what it's purported to do most of the time. So no big claims. This is just what it is. And if they can back up what it is and why it does, and sometimes there will be clinical data studies that good supplement companies will reference. And you want to make sure that those are like third party and not our lab said this. That's another big thing.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, and to your point, I mean, it's a lot. And when I just think about now, having AI as a way to quickly, I mean, let's face it, you can sometimes get misinformation, but it's a lot easier to get an overview now without having to go through pages and pages of search engine results to educate yourself. And for me, I think like, oh, it's so much. And then it's back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of our discussion. It's like we need to be educated consumers, right? And whether we're being educated, we're dealing with a health issue for ourselves or somebody we love, and we're talking to the doctor, or what we're putting into our own bodies. I mean, yeah, we're listening to podcasts like this, and we're watching reels and so forth. At the same time, it's almost like you kind of have to invest in your own knowledge. But let me. Oh, go ahead.
And I'm really glad that you brought that up. You can't just like listen to a podcast and say, oh, I got to go get, XYZ now. I got to go get Burberry now because I heard so-and-so talk about that. You have to know what your blood sugar levels are. So one of the things that, Dave and I talk about a lot is you have to go see what your insights say before you start taking supplements. There are some basic ones, yes, and we can say, oh, vitamin D, everybody needs vitamin D. Well, some people have perfectly like good optimal levels of vitamin D and they don't need to take it, and too much can be toxic. And same thing with anything. So the first thing that anybody should do if they really want to cut through the noise in terms of figuring out their own supplement protocol is you need to get your blood work done. You need to know what is inside of you. And if you can get a scan, that will be even better. But you have to know what's inside of you. And
a scan, what do you mean a scan? Like a whole body scan?
Yeah, like get a whole body scan if you can. That's very helpful. That doesn't tell you your micronutrient levels inside, but at least it gives you a read on your whole body. What is there? Are there deficiencies? In terms of are there some structural issues? And that might lend to some bone density, deficiencies, and you have to get a different scan for that. But it's just knowing what's going on inside. That is really important. So I would never say just go buy a supplement because you heard it's good for you, which is what people are doing. You can ask a practitioner about it and you can go and get your blood work done, which now you can just order them online. All these labs that were just for practitioners now offer test kits that any consumer can just buy online, which is amazing. That didn't exist 10 years ago. And you can see what your data says about you. And then you can decide, oh, I do need that supplement I heard about on that podcast. That would be good for me. Or you can say, oh, I don't need, my levels are great, and I don't need that. So that would be probably the number one and most important thing to do first is to know what's going on inside of you before you decide if you need to optimize or supplement it.
I love that. It's so practical. And to your point, so easy now. So thanks for that. Okay. I am going out on a little bit of a limb before we wrap up. And I want to see if you're down for it. You can say no. But in the spirit of continuing to talk about supplements, and a lot of them are getting a lot of attention, I'm wondering if you'll play Marry, Screw, or Kill with me.
I don't know what that is.
So I'm gonna give you 5 supplements and you're going to say, I marry it. And if you don't want to say screw, you can say kiss or kill.
Okay.
We're just going to have fun at the end here. And if you're like, I'm going to pass, I'm going to give you 1 pass.
Okay.
Okay. And these are some are brand names, some are just more general things that are just like, they're bombarding social media. They're bombarding all of us. So we're going to start with AG1 Athletic Greens, and especially because you're a green juice girl.
Yeah.
Marry, screw, or kill.
So I think that what is great about AG Greens is that they've made something that's very convenient, and it's a lot of fruits and vegetables and like what we were talking about earlier, those phytonutrients that would be hard for you to get in to even to do it every day. You'd have to make sure you're having that good serving of vegetables every single day, maybe 2 or 3 of them, 2 out of 3 meals if you do 3 meals. And if you only do 2, you're going to have to make sure you get into both. And if you only do 1, then you're going to have to make sure you get all of that into your 1 meal. So because of that, I think it's very it's very useful and very helpful to have something
So
like that.
even the dehydrated down like that, you're saying Mary AG1s.
Well, I would say Kiss. You can make out a little bit. I'm still
Okay.
prefer you to do the whole foods if you can. And if the product is properly like dehydrated, it is raw, it is organic, and it's dehydrated properly so that it retains as much of its nutritional value as possible, then yes. But I would not say do that instead. I would say do it with. I wouldn't say
supplement. I mean, it's a supplement. It's called a supplement. Okay, so we're saying KISS for AG1 athletic greens. Okay, vital proteins, the go-to collagen and peptide combo that Jennifer Aniston. I think we've all seen it. Mary, KISS, kill.
So it depends if you are plant-based or not, right? If you are not plant-based, of course, I actually think it's great. I've known the Vital guys since they launched, like years and years and years ago. So I actually recommend them because they are the OG. They were the first to market. And I think that it's a very easy, and I like what I call non-intrusive practices. It is non-intrusive to put a couple scoops of that into your beverage in the morning, especially if it's a hot beverage. You can put it into your lemon water, your coffee or tea. If you take in animal protein, the taste of it isn't going to bother you as much as if you were someone who is, primarily plant-based or plant-forward. So I think that is a great thing to supplement, especially your protein intake and to help with skin. So I like it, and I do recommend it.
So somewhere between Mary and KISS.
I would say if you're not plant-based, that's a good Mary. That's a good Mary.
Okay. All right. Oh God, I'd like it.
Not overkill. We don't want to take in too much animal protein. We know about mTOR and AMPK, and we don't want to overkill the protein. But it is good to add some in, definitely.
Amen. Okay, yeah, and it's 2 scoops. Sorry.
2 scoops is considered 1 serving. That's 20 grams. 1 scoop is 10, and so you can do it. And again, it depends. It depends how much protein you're taking in throughout the rest of your day. So that's what's important to know. So if you are taking in protein, if you're taking in 30, 40 grams every chance you get, you might not need those 2 scoops, right? It just depends how much protein you're taking in, and it depends what your protein goals are. So I would say, again, between Mary and KISS, that's a makeout. We added in a different.
I like it. Serena, I love playing this game with you. Let's make out. Okay. NADs. Oh my God.
So I'm much, much more of a fan, and the science backs it, on NAD precursors. So you want to help your body make the NAD. And the precursors come in the form of NMN, NR, NAR. There's different forms of the precursor, and the precursor just makes a lot more sense to me. To help your body make it so that you're still making it. If you fall off a day, maybe you you left it in the hotel room and you don't take it for a week or 7 days or 4 or 5 days. If you're taking a precursor, your body is still making it. If you're just supplementing what you're already pretty deficient in, if you're anywhere over 40, then you're missing out if you're not taking it. So I'm a much bigger fan of a precursor versus the NAD. I think that's sort of a waste of effort.
Okay, so we're going to say kill the NAD and make out with NMN, and I take it's called lipo-NR. So it sounds like I got that one right.
Yeah, so I would say a precursor you marry, like precursors like an NMN, an NR, and NAR precursors. That's a daily. That's like a daily always.
Okay, amen. 2 left.
After. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Oh, I love that. Mm-hmm. I love the clarity here and conviction. Okay, colostrum.
So it's so interesting because I was just asked about that today. Again, that would depend if you're plant-based or not plant-based and you're taking animal protein. So with colostrum, it's really about the purity of that cholesterol and how it was derived and processed. And there's a lot out there that it's got great marketing, but it is not properly processed, and it's not really doing as much for you as a product that is. I can't name the products that are really doing it right. There's one, I believe, that's coming out that is not on the market yet, that supposedly has the highest level of processing, the way they derive the cholesterol. It has proven to be beneficial, obviously, for gut health. It can help support immune health. It's not for everyone, but I haven't known anyone who's taking a pretty good brand of it to have any negative experiences. But it's a waste if it's not high quality.
Okay. Well, and something you said is so important, and that is the marketing. And especially if you're on social media, when you're seeing this, same brand a ton of times. And I mean, we're all, I shouldn't say we all, a lot of us, it's like you see it enough and you're like, oh, well, that must be good. And it's not. I mean, it's like the art of rhetoric. Like if you say it enough, you start to believe it and your brain gets primed. So for myself and for all my beautiful audience members, don't be fooled by great marketing.
Yeah, there are things that don't do anything that have great marketing. I mean, there's a lot of very popular, I cannot name them as much as I would love to, products out there, from devices to tests to supplements to food and beverages, nutraceuticals, the functional beverage space is a big one, where the marketing is great, but the actual efficacy is totally different, and whether or not it's worth spending that money on is really different. A lot of these products that are in the functional food space, or that's probably the space the amount that you actually need would be like having 30 packets. It's not like one stick is going to get you the result that is saying that it can give you. So that's something to be really mindful of. But there's a lot to be said with placebo. I do keynotes on it. So, if you believe that it's doing something good for your body, it will do something good for your body,
I love that.
Crap products. So
I kind of love it and kind of hate it at the same time. I mean, but the power of our minds. I mean, ultimately, I agree with you to the extent that it leads to a better outcome and it, costs you a few bucks. Like, who cares? Yay, you're investing in yourself. So I love that. Okay, so with colostrum.
Really?
Oh, sorry.
I said, and that's where marketing really gets its ROI. Because if they get you to believe that this is going to do what they say it's going to do for you, there's a chance that it will, because of that placebo effect. So with colostrum, I can't really, maybe a kiss, like
a little peck.
A kiss.
little.
And it has this, and again, there's a couple companies that are coming up, and they may be the ones to lean towards once they're out in the marketplace. So,
all right, but I appreciate that point. I mean, that when it comes to really, and again, back to what you were saying a few minutes ago about having to do some of the research. Now, we shop at Costco, like most of America, but something that I have always appreciated about Costco, it really feels like they keep a tight, a tight rein on the quality of products that they have. And so for me, it's like I can, and again, 900 Korean skincare products, are they all really great? I don't know. But when I think about as a starting point, like with AG greens being sold at Costco, I'm like, chances are this has already been pre-approved. That's my take. Right. And I realize that they'll sometimes take products and do like little mini tests and so forth. But just given how conscientious they are. Sorry.
Yeah. Sometimes they will make a specific SKU to be sold only at Costco and it's not sold anywhere else, but, going back to what you just said, part of sovereignty is self-responsibility. So that's very, very key. If we want to live our best life, if we want an incredible health span. If we want to feel amazing, if we want to look amazing, there is personal responsibility that is foundational to that. So I would say it's worth it. If you are confused, then do some research. The research exists, and it's not, and I know it still can be overwhelming, but if you spend a little bit of time and do a little bit of a deep dive, you will cut through a lot of the noise. And then it's just going to be a few voices that are really kind of saying the same thing. Now, I know there's contradicting voices when it comes to a plant forward or plant-based lifestyle versus like a meat heavier, animal protein heavy lifestyle. There's controversy around that. Of course, there's science that kind of backs up both arguments. But for other things, most of the time, several voices will rise above the noise if you just spend a little bit of time looking up what it is that you're interested in. And I think that's important for everyone. It's just an important reminder. It is your life at the end of the day. It is your body. To have sovereignty, you got to own that responsibility. So,
yeah, I love that. I love that. And the more I dig into these things, like it'll feel overwhelming at first. And then I just start asking questions. And then I become interested. It is like, rather than it feeling like this chore, it's like, ooh, I'm excited to learn it. And especially for people like us, it's like, I'm excited to learn it and I'm excited to share it. Like, now I want to tell everybody what I know.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's like, for me, the foundation of everything I do is really education. You give people the research, you give them choice, you give them the opportunity to decide, do they want it, do they not want it? And so once it's like you said, it seems hard at first, but it's different when you start to learn, and when you start to understand. And understanding is also what helps create sustainable habits. When you're just doing something because someone told you to, or you heard it was good, there's a lot less investment in that than when you understand why, and you understand why it works, or like why this. Then there's a much deeper connection to that, and you're more inclined to do it regularly.
Well, and I just have to say, and I've got one more supplement I want to ask you about. I just have to say, there's so much, like, when I think about so much, I mean, even something like meditation, or, things like, okay, everybody's talking about it as a, somebody who's really taken meditation to heart, like, it has changed the game for me. And so this back to like this personal responsibility. And now, due to social media and so forth, everybody knows about meditation, but like breath work so punches above its weight. And yet I feel like, and I'm pretty tuned into this stuff, I only feel like breath work has really come into the fore in the last handful of years, but it's been around for thousands of years. Right. So it's back to your point about like doing the research, like I'll tell you what, my son, I was giving him some, like, he's a superstar 15-year-old, 16-year-old athlete. And I'm like talking about visualization and, mindfulness and all this stuff. And he literally says to me, well, and I'm saying it's Michael Phelps, it's Serena Williams, it's Steph Curry. I mean, it's like all the GOATs. And he's like, well, if it worked so well, everybody'd be doing it. And I'm like ready to die. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, no, the GOATs are doing it, but just because everybody else isn't doing it is out of either laziness, ignorance, right? And it's not to judge, but it's to your point of like
hard, we think they think it's too hard. And actually what your son said is a very common belief. It's sort of like when something is expensive, you think it's better. Who said? Not necessarily. Just because something is expensive does not necessarily mean it's not
really well marketed.
It doesn't. And just because something is easy and accessible doesn't cost you a thing to breathe a certain way, right? So it seems like you don't have to work for it. Then you think that it must not work, but you do, because the concept of doing it as a practice and being disciplined, that's the work. It's not taking, 4 breaths. It's not doing box breathing once a day or here and there that makes it work. It's doing it ritualistically. It's doing it routinely. It's doing it all the time, or at the very least in a way that's like a routine. That's when it's going to work for you, not when you just do it here and there. So it's not hard, but it's not easy enough for people to just, fall into it.
Totally. I love that. And when I think about how consistency compounds. I mean, that's just the fact of life. And if it's like you were saying before, just one thing at a time, and then you value stack it. Okay. So my last one, I think I know the answer, but what did we say? Marry, kiss or kill. There's this really great supplement I've heard about called Just Add Water.
It's so funny because it's like an AG greens, it's just like, I love that. You're so sweet. So it is like an AG greens. It is where you can't get it in. If you can't, most people tell me it tastes way better, but that's not the point. If you can't get in everything that you need in a day by way of whole food, then take it in this way. It's better than not getting it all. So it's similar in that way where, yes, you can absolutely make out, even though it's my product. I'll say,
I'm marrying it. Come on. After this, I'm going to go order mine.
Yes. So it's like that. I'm still always going to say whole foods, whole plant-based foods to get those nutrients. But when you can't, reach for something that is high quality. It's raw, it's organic, it's still retain all, as much of its nutrient value as possible. Those are good to have, especially, as a convenience tool. It's very good. So, and
how do we order it, Serena? How do we order Just Add Water, or can you get it like at Whole Foods, or where do you get it?
Yeah, so it's been just online, and we have been sold out for a bit. So
congrats. That's great. That's a high grade problem.
So check. Thank you. So check, and when it comes back, the notifications will go up. And there's actually a couple new items that we are probably going to add to it. We'll either add to that or we'll add it to Serena Loves. I can't decide which yet. And then I have another, like a secondary line that is going to launch. I haven't told anybody this year, the first, is going to launch under Serena Lives. And that's the holistic lifestyle medicine line of products will be launched as like a secondary line to Serena Lives.
And what kind of products will those be?
Those will also be in the supplemental and nutraceutical space, but like some different SKUs. And it'll almost be like a in between, a crossover of water and Serena Loves. So,
I love it. Well, you heard it here first, folks, on Getting Open. That's exciting. Well, it sounds like you got a handful of cool things cooking, so you're gonna have to come back. And oh my gosh, I didn't realize until like really digging into the research that you and David are partners, not just in work, but I loved I have to say this just because it's the sweetest thing. And by the way, we're talking about longevity, we're talking about quality of life, we're talking about better health outcomes. You and I know this, but it's one of my favorite things to talk about. My audience knows too. Healthy love and relationships are the number one thing you can do to improve your longevity, to improve your health, to improve everything. And so I'm going to read this and you're going to blush, but I don't care. This is what David said. Serena, my love. Oh, it's going to make me cry. I feel like the luckiest guy on earth, having found my perfect match. You are the female equivalent of me, sharing the same mission to help millions of people live better lives. Only you are much kinder, more mature, and far better looking. In 2021, you saw me on a stage with no partner, no clear direction, dressed in a way too small t-shirt. I love this guy. I am so grateful you chose me. My life has been transformed. I didn't know it was possible to be so close to someone, to have them truly care about your well-being, success, and happiness. Took me a while to believe you were real. He goes on, but I just love that for you guys.
Where do you say this? Like, wait,
this is on Instagram. This is like 2 years ago. This is this was his Valentine's tribute. I told you I kind of stalked you.
He's very good with words. Very good.
Well, but I say that's just in the spirit of, as we come to a close, and I want to take one more minute of your time and talk about fasting, because I think this is something that I'm only waking up to the power of fasting. And it just feels, again, like, well, if everybody was doing it, like there's so much ignorance and misinformation. But I call that out, both because it's just beautiful, and for you to hear those words again, and for all of us to invest in, I mean, it's back to what we were talking about. The more I invest in myself, the better off every single relationship that I'm in. Every single one. And so I just think of that as like this virtuous cycle. It's not selfish. Like I think the most selfless thing you can do is love and care for yourself, because then you can show up with so much to give, right? And that helps longevity. It helps everything.
You're 100% right. It's something that, you have to remind yourself of, right? Because there's something that says you are being selfish. And it's a reminder that the more you can do for yourself, the more you can do for others.
Well, totally. And it's like, and we're trained to like do more and be martyrs. And, and it's just kind of like, nah, and that to me, what I have found in my life, I actually, when I pour into myself, because I'm not burned out, I actually have more to give to other people. Like, like we were talking about, like the energy is better.
Yes. It's so true. It's so true. And people receive it that way too. The people who receive it that way, they feel better. And someone who loves you and knows you is going to want you to not be burnt out, because their experience is also going to be more enriching. So
and it's more fun. I mean, it's just like, it's a win all around. And I just feel like there was this like, I come from great German stock and I love all my, German heritage, but this like misinformation, this like martyrdom, this like, it needs to be hard. Like, no, it fucking doesn't. Excuse my language. Like, you can put effort. I am so not into hard work anymore. I'm into deliberate effort.
Like that too. It's just like, it needs to be hard, hard. And, but yeah, it's about intentional, it's about doing things with intention, rather than, doing all the things. It's doing things with intention, similar to what we were talking about with supplements earlier.
Yeah. And I just think like that grinding, like if you're coming from it, like I have to grind to prove myself, that changes the quality of your energy. It changes the quality of your experience versus saying, I'm in love with this thing, that I'm in love with creating supplements that really help people feel better. I'm in love with making this podcast. Like, I'm like, all right, I'm all about like making love to my life. You know what I mean? And I'm still putting a lot of effort in, but it's not the grind it used to be.
It's different. Well, a lot of the times, and this is a whole nother conversation, but a lot of the times the way we show up, when we show up that way, it's because of trauma, or it's because we didn't get our needs met, like in a healthy way when we were younger. And that's no fault to anyone's parents necessarily. It's just, we look at life through the lens of the parent that we sought the most love from when we were a child, and we kind of like take on their perspective, and then we have a tendency to mimic it. So the need to prove ourselves, to earn and deserve and feel loved, really comes from our childhood, which then goes into our subconscious and our unconscious decisions. I mean, 96% of our decisions are really from a subconscious or an unconscious place. That's very Bruce Lipton, right? I mean, so sometimes it's again, the kind of like unlearning what we learned from a young, unlearning what didn't come with our awareness when we first came into this world, and then remembering who we are and remembering what is kind of, what we all deserve, and remembering what everyone just has as like a right to be.
Yeah, I call that deprogramming. And I've been like on a mission, right? Because so much of what we get, and from mostly well-intentioned parents and caregivers, and, and all that generational trauma keeps getting handed down and handed down. So for me, one of my biggest missions has been to deprogram, which doesn't serve me and the people that I serve, my kids, my family, my audience, right? But it becomes back to what you were saying before. It becomes a personal responsibility. I love this line. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility, right? When it comes to the trauma and what we've experienced in growing up. And so it's like, it's not about being a victim, but you can do something about it. And that's the good news. Okay, so I have one last question. Well, I have like a million more questions, but today, because you've already been so generous with your time, thank you. Because you're that expertise in nutrition and longevity and so forth. Talk to me about fasting, because that one seems to punch above its weight. And I feel like it's being like talked about kind of at the margins here in America, but in other countries, it's much more common. And again, I mean, something that I read the other day said, you know what, breakfast became a really big thing in like the 60s when cereal manufacturers said it's the most important meal of the day because they wanted to sell more cereal. Right. And so this idea of 3 square meals a day and now the food pyramid has been upended. So blah, blah, blah. What do we need to know about fasting?
Okay. So fasting, yes, fasting is, it's something good to do. It's something that I would recommend. Basically, fasting triggers autophagy, which is, it's like the way your body shifts from like an anabolic state to like catabolic state. And that's where you're in like repair, and maintenance. So there are different molecules that we can take, like spermidine is one of them. And there's all these different things that we do. We talk about all these biohacking type of activities that stimulate autophagy. And so fasting in like and that's where you can do it long fasting or intermittent. Intermittent fasting is very, very, that term is very popular. And that's when you fast, you're not fasting for days. As we know, in ancient cultures, people fast for days. Some people in some cultures, it's just normal. You fast one day a week, from sunrise to sundown. It's very, very common for a lot of cultures.
Ramadan too. I mean, to think about what Muslims do for a whole freaking month.
Yeah. So it's something that has existed forever. And it's a way to kind of like, it's a way to allow your body to rest and restore and actually detox too. So when we talk about intermittent fasting, it's just where we don't eat, for anywhere from 12 to 16, 18, 20 hours. I wouldn't say that the number of hours applies to everybody every day of the week. Men have a different constitution than we do. They're a different species. And so they can fast for longer than we can, particularly during different times of the month for women. Women who are still menstruating should not fast the same every week of that month. And even if you're no longer menstruating, we are built differently. And so we're not men, so we cannot fast for the same amount of hours. It affects our hormone levels. It affects our cortisol levels. So fasting is great because, we can get into ketosis. The different things happen. It helps to up level, low mTOR. We've talked about mTOR, something stimulated by protein. High AMPK, that upregulates those autophagy genes. And so those genes, it's like activating your longevity pathways, basically is what happens when you fast. When you fast too long, especially for women, you can uptake your cortisol levels, which is what you don't want to do. So that's like it's a key takeaway for women specific, especially where you can go overboard sometimes with the fasting, especially if it's not where you're like on a 3-day fast and you're just doing it for these 3 days. And then your body goes through a different process and a different detoxing process. That becomes more like a detox. If you're talking about doing like a daily fast, 12 to 16 hours is a really good place to land. And David talks a lot about, we both talk a lot about like abundance mode. So you want to put your body in a state where it's not feeling abundant. And that's where I was saying you're in a more, catabolic mode. You're shifting into this like repair mode, this maintenance. That's when those longevity pathways get activated. But when your body is thinking it's easy, it's abundant, everything, there's tons of food, you're actually aging yourself. It's not a state that activates those pathways. So now that you've recently discovered it, it's great. It's great. You want your body to do that sort of like cellular housekeeping, and like and it reduces inflammation. It gets rid of cellular debris. And that's just most importantly, I mean, I know a lot of people can lose weight as well. Most importantly, it stimulates the repair and renewal mode in your body. And that's what we need for cellular regeneration. And that is the reason why fasting is so good for us. And then there's the benefits, the perks, like your metabolism goes up, you can have more energy, you don't feel as sluggish, you can lose weight. Those are all amazing perks to it, but it's that cellular, repair, debris removal, and renewal that is very key to the longevity aspect of it.
Oh, thank you, Serena. Yeah, I mean, because I feel like there's I don't even want to say if it's misinformation, just different schools of thought, because I felt like there was a long time when it was like, don't eat meals, graze, right? But I've become and the data really supports fasting. One of the podcasts I listened to with you and David with like research on mice, and then you look into like the blue zones in a lot of places where people aren't just living longer, they're living well longer. Like they're trucking around. They're not just like, sitting in a chair.
Well, the other thing is
they're fasting.
Science, it's just, if we're going to get a little bit more granular, I mean, it's great for your metabolic health. It really improves your insulin sensitivity. We already talked about it reducing inflammation. So when something improves your insulin sensitivity, you have better blood sugar control. And people forget that your liver helps you make that. You have to give it a chance to actually do its job. If you're not feeding your body all the time, the liver can't actually do that. It knows how to make that sugar. So, and then of course, it's also good for brain health. It's good for, your overall immune function. It's good. It helps to get rid of some of the senescent cells. And that those are cells that are, they're often called zombie cells. They're kind of like cells that are dead, but they're still hanging around, taking up space and taking up energy. So the fasting helps reduce the level of senescence that happens in our body because we get to repair and renew. So it's got all kinds of benefits, and you don't have to do anything. And in the context of cancer, especially, fasting has been very, very helpful for there's a lot of cancer survivors that will talk about how fasting was very much a part of that process. So it helps to, the fasting can help protect the healthy cells, especially if someone's going through a treatment. And then it's also kind of like sensitizing those cancer cells and making them more susceptible to the treatments. I mean, I can't say that this is like a set thing. I don't fully quote me on
Yeah,
that.
we're not giving medical advice here, folks. But to the extent that data supports that a better outcome for a lot of cancer patients, I never heard that. Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's more preclinical. I can't say that it's like a cure, but it definitely supports the process, but I want to say that oftentimes we also want to make sure that people in those with those diagnoses, they also get in enough food. So it's delicate. It kind of depends on, it's a person to person basis, but it has helped a lot of people get through their journeys and to the other side.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that nugget. I mean, I just, when I think about, again, back to the point you're making, like doing your research and getting really informed, because, when I think about a lot of these amazing doctors, they're focused largely on the traditional medical treatment versus what we're talking about and functional medicine and, what your diet is composed of and so forth. One thing I just want to add, if people are like, oh, sorry. What?
It's a holistic place of the holistic with the W that I'm always talking about that. It's a holistic lifestyle that you want to have. You really want to think about your mind, body, and soul and the different ways to approach it. I mean, that's really a holistic approach. Holistic with the W, the way I, kind of like.
Yeah. No, totally. I feel like that. I'm going to start spelling holistic like that with the W. I don't care what people say, because that's the intent, right? But one thing I just want to shout out, because I know there are going to be people who are ready to like groan in thinking the pain of fasting, right? And I'm just going to say this, guys. I used to eat I still eat a fair amount of cookies and donuts, but I went through a phase where I was like a lot of cookies and donuts. And I was like, all right, I'm getting rid of sugar. I'm totally getting rid of sugar. And I would work often till like 2, 3 in the morning. And so at like midnight, I'd go to my pantry and So I said, all right, I'm totally getting off of sugar, like a 2-week sugar thing. And for the first 2 or 3 days, it was so painful. I went to and it's like, you want comfort food. You're working at midnight. Like, give me something good. I went to my pantry. I'm like, I guess I'm going to eat some cashews. Like, I was so sad. It was like no comfort in this. And so for like 3 days, I felt this like, oh, and I realized it's a little different. We're not talking fasting. But after 3 or 4 days of not having sugar, the craving went away and I took more water and it wasn't that bad. And now I don't eat nearly the amount of sugar that I used to eat. I almost never have dessert. Anytime there's a donut nearby, I'll grab it, but I don't go too crazy. But I say this similarly with fasting. Like, I just found myself getting busier and busier in the mornings. So then I'd forget to eat. I wouldn't have time to eat until lunch. And so now that I eat mostly between noon and 8 p.m., it hasn't been brutal for me. And so for anybody who's like, I could never do that, don't say never. Like, and you even talk about this, like if you say, all right, I'm going to start with 10 hours in between and then bookend it and 12 hours. And eventually you get up to say 16 or 18 hours, your body adjusts. It might suck for a couple days, but it punches above its weight. And that's why I'm really grateful for your taking the time to explain the biology of it. Yeah, and it's free, and it's actually really easy.
It's not that bad. I mean, and if you also can take into account your sleeping time. So if you're someone that sleeps 6 hours, you're already halfway to a 12-hour fast. So if you can look at it that way, it's really the fast is all inclusive of the total amount of time that you're not putting fuel into your body. So if you're counting sleep from your last meal to your first meal last meal at night to your first meal the next day, and you're counting sleep, you really only have to consciously sort of think, all right, I just need to not eat for the first 2 hours I'm up, or the first 4 hours I'm up, depending on what time you go to bed and what time your dinner is.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, or Serena, this audience, you guys are all allowed now to sleep for 10 hours. We're all getting extra. The getting open crowd is like, all right, see you at 10 a.m. Go to bed at midnight.
Are so great because you can sleep at 10, you've already fasted, and then you wake up and eat whatever you want. So
yeah, time to eat. Oh my.
It's easier that way if you look at, again, tiny little things, right? Like tiny little steps, and it all counts.
Well, but back to, we've touched on this a number of times. I mean, it's back to your perception, it's back to sovereignty. And if you sit here and say, this sucks, I can't do it. Okay, well then, yeah, you're right. Versus saying, all right, I'm going to do the math. I sleep between 6 and 8 hours. It's not that bad. And I'm just going to start with 12 hours and get my body used to, because here's the thing. I mean, it's like what you were saying before, one thing at a time, just for today. I feel like when you really try to do extreme things, and I know about extreme things, it's like how I'm wired, it makes it harder versus like, let me just be a little more gentle with myself. You know what I mean?
It is very much about that. It's just about being a little bit more, be kind to yourself. You can say be gentle, because I love that. Just be kind, be kind to yourself. Your body actually responds. That's the funny thing that we, especially when we're like type A, when we're go-getters, and we all, anyone who's an entrepreneur, we're like that. We're juggling a million things. You're working 24/7, blah, 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 like all of that. But the interesting thing is that when you are kind to yourself, you can actually be way more productive than when you're pushing yourself and meet your goal faster.
I mean, totally. And that's it's a perfect note to end on. I love this conversation. I've learned so much, Serena. Thank you for being on Getting Open. You've been such a great guest.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. You're amazing.
Whew. Guys, I hope you got as much out of this episode as I did. There are so many actionable takeaways. And honestly, I just feel both more energized as well as more relaxed after talking at length to Serena. I hope you loved it. And honestly, a quick reminder to please follow and or subscribe to the show. I want to make sure, my team and I want to make sure you don't miss an episode. We bring every single one to you with our full hearts. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.